This interview was such a groundbreaking, earth-shattering expose on the inner workings at the Honeywell-Metropolis uranium hexafluoride conversion plant that we had to take it down a few years ago when we originally did the interview on May 8th, 2019. Since then, a class action lawsuit has been filed against the plant, and here within a few years of the lawsuit, we are putting this groundbreaking interview with nuclear whistleblower Michael Harris back up. It is November 17th, 2022. You're not going to want to miss this interview with Michael Harris, a nuclear whistleblower formerly working at the Honeywell-Metropolis uranium hexafluoride conversion plant. And interestingly, this interview was done on our mom's birthday, May 8th. And since then, she has passed away. So, I want to dedicate this interview to Michael and my mom, Carol Harris.
Get up, your voices are needed. Become the pulse of the revolution. In the ranks of the masses rising. Get up, your voices are needed. Become the pulse of the revolution. In the ranks of the masses rising.
Greetings everyone, this is Bobby Vaughn Jr. with a call to actions. Today I'm here with another nuclear whistleblower, but this is a kind of rare event, as it's pretty rare that any brave individuals actually come out and talk about the only uranium conversion facility within the United States. I'll start with a brief description on the history of this plant. After World War II, uranium production became the utmost importance within the U.S. military-industrial complex for the production of nuclear weapons. In the small town of Metropolis, Illinois, the Allied Chemical Plant opened its doors in 1958, and in 1962, it became the sole facility that converted raw uranium ore, also known as yellow cake, into uranium hexafluoride. Now, under the name Honeywell-Metropolis Works, or Converdyne, the plant continued operations until November 30th, 2017, when it announced to idle the plant and lay off approximately 300 workers. Then, abruptly, on May 16, 2018, the plant was punched with its first ever class action lawsuit. Plaintiffs claim that the plant knowingly contaminated the surrounding environment with uranium, thorium, and other radionuclides. Since then, very few whistleblowers have spoken up, though today I have with me a man named Michael Harris, is one of those few that are brave enough to actually speak out. Thank you for being a brave voice of the people and being with me today. Would you like to start with a description of your position at the plant?
Yes, I was a material handler at the plant, and my job consisted of bringing ore from a pad up to a place that they put blends together to make yellow cake, and for them to convert it. Mm-hmm. And constantly, my job was to be around this stuff. There was a building that was called the Shredder Building, was highly contaminated. You could not enter without having a Tyvek suit, fresh air mask, and your ankles and hands duct taped. And it was extremely high levels of contamination. And day in and day out, we were in here opening these drums and running it through a machine and constantly putting this dust from these chemicals, dry chemicals, into the air, and there was no filtration unit or anything to avoid this stuff from being put out into the air or the atmosphere. There was numerous times that there was a building that was called the Rot Building, where drums of materials was set down to rot for 90 days before it was low enough on contamination levels to be shipped out. To enter this building, you had to have a fresh air mask on. And while we were down there, we had to dress in full rubber suits, fresh air masks, acid-proof gloves and boots over our existing work boots to what was called scrub drums. We used a highly concentrated toilet bowl cleaner that, when you put on the drums, would steam and put off extremely toxic odor, and we had to scrub these drums with this to be able to ship these drums out to get the contamination level down. And we would, once to twice a week, we would send out rail cars with contaminated materials to 2 different locations. One went to Utah, and I believe the other one went to New Mexico. And they had to be a certain amount, and also these had to be scanned by the health physics department to be able to leave the facility. But I know numerous times we had blue hoppers, rollback hoppers, that was full of yellow cake, and we sprayed them out with blasters, and it all went down into a water drain system that went straight out to the river. And it was numerous times that these were so hot, there was no way they could leave. And I saw numerous times where outside contractors would come in, and they could never leave with their vehicles again because of just walking around on dirt surfaces and getting in their trucks. And the mud would get down in the rubber mats or whatever in the floorboard, and the trucks were so hot they couldn't leave the facility.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that, how you would hose down the pads, or of course you know more about it than I do, but this outfall, or this ditch, I believe it's outfall 2, or outfall 002, which collects on average about 3.3 million gallons of water from the site every day that flows out this ditch or outfall and is disposed of directly into the Ohio River.
Yes, there was numerous times every morning we would have to go to our waste management and scrub lights. And I would see people down in this area taking samples in specimen cups and taking it back to the lab to test it. And then there was what you're talking about where we were spraying stuff off. There is a pad that has all the drums. They said there was one time there was 56 million drums on this pad. And there was these solid black drums that were lined up. There was thousands of them, and there would be times we would go down there and pull out whole rows and get halfway through to the middle, and there was highly toxic lime, yellowishy green, cottage cheese looking substance oozing out of these drums all over the pad, and we had to go in and clean this up. So upon cleaning this up, very hazardous, very dangerous. I've never in my life seen anything that looked like this. And it was eating holes in the drums. And to me, my first dealings with this, I said I didn't want to have anything to do with it. But they said, this is your job. This is what you do. So in order to feed my family and take care of my bills, I had to subject myself to hazardous conditions on cleaning this yellow cake up that was eating through drums.
Yeah, there's no telling, like, really what that mixture contained. Like, definitely uranium, but it sounds like there were some other chemical compounds in there, too. I'd say definitely hydrofluoric acid. I know that's been a big problem at some other plants is HF. which just by itself is bad. Then you mix it with uranium, becomes pretty toxic. When they would leak out or ooze out this material, was it normal, or did you ever witness or have to like forcefully partake in spraying what was left over on the pads out to the outfall that would drain to the river?
Yeah, most of the time, I mean, for some reason it seemed to rain a lot out there. So this pad where all this stuff was held, a lot of the times the drums are underwater, you know. I mean, at least an eighth away, like first ring on the drum was underwater. And I mean, this stuff, like I said, was oozing out. And we would have to take pressure washers down there, and we sprayed the pad off with that. And of course, it went right in the drain.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was numerous times that this happened. And like I said, you know, I didn't think it was right. And I was like, where does this go? And they was like, oh, well, it goes back here to these ponds. We had rubber-lined ponds that was full of ammonia and also some black tarish looking material. I don't know exactly what it was, but we had to suck these ponds out on one occasion, and the smell was so bad. I mean, if you breathe without a respirator on, you would instantly start vomiting. It was extremely very potent smelling, raw, rotten eggish.
Yeah.
There was a lot of sulfur smell. I mean, like I said, it was black. And if you ever got it on anything, I mean, it'd never come up. And then also, when I was talking about those drums that we had to clean to ship, there was a lot of times that, like I was saying, you know, it rained a lot. So these truck bays were backed up where the semi-trailers were, where we would take and load these drums after they were cleared by health physics. There was 2 foot of water or so in the bottom of these places, and they told us don't walk in there. And I was like, okay, I don't walk through any liquid. I don't know what is, but it was bad enough that when they get up to the gate, they would call us material handlers up to the front, and we had to scrub the wheels with acid for the semis to be able to leave the plant.
Wow. And were these trucks? Were they just sitting in mud or dirt, or was it?
No, these were concrete semi truck pads where they would back up, they would unhook, and they would leave them there, and we would load them, and then they would come back and rehook, and then they would pull them out.
Okay.
But it was, like I was saying, there would be 2 foot of water in there when it rained a lot, and they said that water was extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Don't be walking in it.
It doesn't sound good at all. I know that water is definitely not supposed to mix with UF6, because when it does, it creates an acidic gas form of it, pretty much like a uranium contaminated hydrofluoric acid gas that when you breathe in, you know, as we know from the 2014 leak, I believe it was October 2014, where there was a uranium hexafluoride leak that you could easily see the plume hitting the atmosphere, and as soon as it hit the atmosphere, an automated sprinkler system came on and started dousing it with water. And there were reports of people miles away at the EEI plant getting sick just from breathing this stuff in miles away.
I only witnessed one time that we had a hexafluoride leak, and there was a sprinkler system called a halo over the rail car. And as soon as that leak started, I mean, the whistles all went off, and we all had to go to our safe zones, and we had to stay in there for a minimum of 2 hours. And as soon as that water hit that gas, it turned into yellow BBs, and it hit the ground.
Good grief.
And sometimes they would clean it up, and sometimes they wouldn't.
That doesn't sound very good. I would really not like to be outside when it's raining radioactive rain.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like. Is if you were on the plant site when they turned the sprinkler system on during a leak, it would literally start raining uranium rain.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting, yet
And also
scary.
Also, it was every Tuesday or every Wednesday. It's been a while to recollect exactly which day it was, but they had a water test, and these were like huge, like you would say sprinkler systems, but they were on steel poles, and I bet they shot out at least a 5-inch stream of water, and these covered all these places where all this caustic and dangerous materials were. So if there was a leak, they would just turn these on, and I mean, we didn't never know if it was a drill or whatever. And then there was times after they would do this, they would make us witness and sign these pads stating that they did a test on these things, and I had no idea what they were doing. But it was really odd that you would have a sprinkler system that only was in certain areas and not the whole plant. You know what I'm saying?
That is interesting. I remember because I'm from the city as well. 26 years. Every Tuesday, the first Tuesday of every month, there was an alarm system, an alarm test across the entire city of Metropolis to test the alarms. They claimed that it was like a disaster alarm system, but the older I got, the more I started to put the pieces together. Is that's like seriously an alarm system put in place in case there's ever a really significant leak at the Honeywell plant.
Yeah, they tested those it was the first or second Tuesday of every month they did that out there.
Yeah, of course they used it for like tornadoes and stuff, if we were ever under a tornado warning. But I say definitely the most disastrous thing that could happen would be something involving the Honeywell plant. One thing that's interesting is most people don't know that the plant is actually a joint venture between two companies, not just Honeywell, but it's Honeywell International and another company that is in the nuclear field and also the drone field. That company being General Atomics. So the Honeywell plant in Metropolis is actually Converdyne. It's usually known as Honeywell or Honeywell Metropolis Works, but it's actually Converdyne. Did they ever tell you about that merger, like between Honeywell and General Atomics at the plant?
Nope.
No? It's kind of interesting.
No.
Something to look into a little bit more. One thing that I had discovered a couple of days ago is I was looking at a draft environmental assessment for the proposed renewal of Honeywell Metropolis Works Source Material License SUB 526, which the Honeywell facility is overseen by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And within this report that was published October 2018, it reports that the Honeywell facility is sitting on top of an aquifer. An aquifer that is made up of Mississippian cavernous rock material that is highly fractured. That's concerning to me when you have the sole and the largest uranium conversion facility on Earth, the sole one in the United States, is sitting directly over an aquifer, is quite suspect, especially when it's highly fractured. Do you believe that there's any way that any contamination on site could have seeped into the ground or somehow made its way to this aquifer?
Well, I mean, there was, when I was talking about those ponds, there were two rubber lined ones I was talking about, but there was also two more that was on the back side of the plant behind the shredder building that I was talking about and the waste management plant, and that was right there by the ditch that we were talking about where it goes straight out into the river.
Yep.
And these, I don't know what was in them, but it wasn't water, or it was some kind of liquid, but it was really weird colored. I mean, it was like a tealish, yellowy blue color. I don't know what it was, but it was right back there. And at one time they were lined, and then the last time I was out there, there weren't. I didn't see any lining, but I know all of this waste was stuck out in a trash area on the ground. So it was sitting on bare gravel and mud, constantly leaking out. When they would do the shutdowns, we would take all the stuff they cut out of that building, and we would take it and put it on pallets and set it out on the ground. No concrete, so it was going straight on the earth.
Yeah, and that's
every time. And it was full of green salt. It was full of yellow cake. And then when it rained, where do you think it went? It went straight in the ground. So there's no doubt in my mind it went straight down.
Right, and I do believe, and there's not a doubt, that when contaminating the Ohio River directly through the outfall, the drainage ditch, outfall 2, that you're also contaminating the aquifer, because people know that rivers feed aquifers and vice versa.
Yeah.
And this aquifer is used solely for Honeywell's municipal water source. There are 3 stations. One for of course, the sprinkler system, the faucets. All water that's used on site is pulled from this aquifer
that we drink and wash our hands in every day.
Correct. Yes. It's kind of cyclical cycle. You know, you contaminate it and then reuse it, and of course, aquifers are pristine until they're contaminated. Definitely something that needs to be looked into more, I think. Anyways, yeah, the aquifer is known as a highly fractured and cavernous Mississippian Salem limestone that underlies the Honeywell site at depths from 280 feet below the surface to 500 feet, which I would suspect is contaminated. So yeah, these the cylinder yards, in my opinion, aren't really overseen enough. Of course, you know, the NRC can do walk-around inspections, but what about the cylinders that are on the very bottom and in the middle of these cylinder yards? I would, again...
The ones that were all rusted through and was just laying flat on the concrete.
Yeah.
And
the ones...
rain washing all in and out of them and stuff, and, of course, going straight down the drains. So those had pure uranium in them at one time. So, because that's what they do. They put them in those gray cylinders when they pressurize it and turn it into a gas and send it out. So, yeah, there was a yard in the back by the waste management thing that we couldn't go in at all. We did not have clearance whatsoever to go in there.
Really? They
would never let us in. Yeah.
Do you have any idea what was going on in there?
No, but they were the big gray cylinders that kind of look like long, stretched out footballs. You know, they were like fat in the middle and they tapered on both ends.
Yeah.
Which, you know, everybody's seen them on flatbed trucks coming in and out of there. And you see them all over. But they sat on looked like railroad ties that had been, you know, carved out for them to set on. But we was not allowed in that area whatsoever. I had complete access to the whole plant except for that yard. Did
you ever witness any spills?
I witnessed,
or cylinder drops?
It wasn't a matter if, it was just when it was going to happen. I noticed they were loading one time, and a crane operator operator made a mistake and he let one fall, and it kind of like one end kind of hit, but it didn't leak or anything. But there were spills every day on like these drums that supposedly had ore in them. The Russian drums were the most common ones that would drop because they're all handmade drums, and they were like twice as thick and twice as heavy as all the rest of them. Mm-hmm. And we had to pick them up with clickers on these forklifts, and we had to bring them from 3 high down, and it was once, twice a week that they would fall, and when they hit, it would put out this black, extremely fine material, and then when it hit the ground, it looked like it had gold flakes in it. It was real shimmery, gold colored, mm-hmm. that was mixed in with this black, and the smell was ungodly. I can't even describe the smell, but it was the same with the green salt. I mean, there was millions of drums of green salt on facility all the time, and we had to stack it and move it all the time, shipping it in and out. And there was a company that used to come in and get pallets of extremely highly hazardous stuff, and it was like maybe once a month they would ship it out on semis, enclosed trailers. And then when they would bring it back, we would have to take hacksaws and cut chunks of the floor out and bleach and use that real high cleaner that we used for the 90-day rot drums, mm-hmm. in the holding building. Mm-hmm. And we would have to try to bleach these trailers out. Once again, having to be in full rubber suits, 107 degrees in these trailers, and in there with stuff that was so highly chlorinated that if you didn't have a mask on, it would probably knock you unconscious. It was so strong. Mm. And as soon as you put it on the floor, it started steaming and smoking. And then the health physicists would come out and monitor it, and if it was still hot, we had to cut it out with hacksaws and hammers and sledgehammers. And so there was a whole lot of cleanup nonstop all the time, trying to make stuff to where it could leave that plant. Mm-hmm. I saw numerous times people's shoes that they left in paper smocks or no shoes on, or like rubber booties that you would put over your boots, like for visitors, because their clothes were so hot they couldn't monitor out. I saw this a lot. Wow. Or people would bring it into our locker rooms and it'd just be tracked all over the floors, and then our clothes that we'd wear home, as soon as we go to monitor out, couldn't leave because it would get on our shoes that we were taking home. And sometimes I don't think there was any way that these monitors could have let us out, but for some reason we did.
Maybe the alarm systems were being wired around or recalculated.
I don't know. Maybe. But I mean, I know there was days when we was in extremely hot areas that we had to shower really good, and we would have to leave 15 minutes before everyone else to go shower to leave, and sometimes had to wear double Tyvek suits and stuff. And I mean, it was really dangerous. And there was one time we was in the shredder building, and there was some material, they wouldn't tell us what it was, but they had us spread it out over the floor so that it could dry, and it looked like iridescent fish scales. I mean, it was all kinds of weird yellowishy blue and purple and green colors, and it kind of just like, it looked like a fish scale, it was so many different colors. Wow. And they would let it dry out on the floor, and then we would have to take flat scrapers and scrape it off and put it back in drums and ship it out. But I was told one time that this stuff should have never been on facility, and I had no idea what it's called, but I just know that it was hush-hush, and people were very nervous that it was there. But once again, they subjected us to this, and it was either do it or you're fired. So
that's kind of strange, because the plant really is only supposed to be receiving uranium oxides like U308 or uranium oxide to be converted. But is there another part of the plant that people don't know about? Like it can receive shipments and hold those shipments to be shipped elsewhere. Have you heard about that?
Like I said, there was highly restricted areas that we couldn't go in, and I mean there was stuff coming and going all the time, and I mean there was this stuff that we weren't allowed to be around, and they did do a lot of shipping and receiving. So I don't know exactly what it was, or I can tell you what I saw and what I was exposed to daily.
A lot of Russian material. I know Honeywell Converdyne's been in contracts or deals with Russia for a long time. It's kind of a hot topic these days, so I think it's important to bring that up. In China.
Yeah, we got a lot of Russian drums shipped in weekly, and we had a lot of stuff from China, and I mean all over the world. There was stuff from South America, and they just told us that it was ore for process. It was different blends for different kinds of ore that they were stuff they were making.
Yeah, there are some images available online. If you just search Wikipedia for Converdyne, you'll see images of the drums of one of the cylinder yards, and if you zoom in, you'll see Kazatomprom or Kazakhstan, which used to be part of the USSR, which now even the Kazakhstan or Kazatomprom shipments are overseen by Russia's atomic energy, Rosatom. So, I mean, although these cylinders may not necessarily all of them say Russia, a lot of them are being overseen, and Russia's getting a good cut of the deal from even stuff coming from Kazakhstan. You've probably seen those.
Oh yeah, I've seen a bunch of those.
Yeah,
because it was written right on the drums.
Yeah,
and it was like painted on with a stencil.
Like an oil pastel.
Well, no, I mean paint. I mean they had stencils painted on there, like you would make out of cardboard.
Oh,
and it would say.
Yep.
There were some from there. Then there were some from different parts of Russia. But yeah, those are the ones that were the most noticeable of how they were, because they were a light gray.
Yeah.
And then there were some Russian drums that were black, but the light gray ones were the one from Kazakhstan or whatever you said. They were the light, and those were the most. There was more of them than any that we had.
I'm just looking at an aerial photograph of the plant, and of course there are the gray cylinders. I know the black ones. Those are smaller, and they stack those up vertically. But what about the red cylinders? You remember seeing those?
I love you, Mom. Happy birthday. Now, are you talking like the 55-gallon ones?
They look they look like they're about 55 gallon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there was always a whole bunch of red drums down there. Yeah, I mean they were like always the red ones. There were some like faded yet red, and then there was a whole bunch of new red ones.
Yeah, of course the plant's in an idle stage right now, but I know as a matter of fact that they haven't stopped receiving shipments.
No, they haven't.
I can't, of course, because I don't work there. I don't know exactly like why they're receiving shipments. Why they just last month received over 50,000 pounds of material are they still converting, or like I'm wondering if they're just like a holding area to be shipped out to other places? But they say they're running minimal operations. They still have a few employees. I wonder if they're still processing material. And if they are, because so many people are laid off, they could easily be processing material that's out of specifications.
Well, I've been told by people that used to work there that they're fixing to start back up. And I was like, well, how is that even possible?
Yeah. I don't see that going through very well, especially with this lawsuit.
Well, I was told by people that used to work there that was security, and they said that they called them back to go to work because they said they was going to start.
They
don't know if that's real.
They might start decontamination and decommissioning. But we will see. We will see.
Yeah.
So, thank you for your contributions. Again, here with the brave Michael Harris, one of the very few whistleblowers in Metropolis that are willing to come out and tell the truth about what's happened at the United States only uranium conversion facility and the planet's largest uranium conversion facility. A lot of good clues here, a lot of key points. And again, I thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be talking very soon.
Okay.
All right. Again, this is Bobby Vaughn Jr. with a call to actions. Michael Harris. Take care. Truth, unity, and triumph.